So I'm so excited to be here for another mini series that's really connected to lifting up women of color in their stories, not from a deficit perspective, but from a strength based perspective. This is all about asset building and really uncovering how even our stories of challenges and stories of adversity can really, when viewed from a perspective of strength, really be liberating and inspiring and empowering. There is always a story behind the story. And if we can find the strength in the story, I believe that that can build us up in ways that really lifts our community collectively. So on today, I'm so excited to just be having a conversation one-on-one in this series with Dr. Sandra Ingram. No, we are not related, but there is something about that Ingram name, right?
Yeah.
That there's
Yeah.
something about it. So I'm so excited about our conversation on today, and I would love for you, Dr. Ingram, to really begin to introduce yourself to the We Lift Us community.
Yes. First of all, thank you for having me here. It is a privilege and an honor. But I want to tell everyone that I am Panah. I am skillfully and wonderfully made. And
Yes.
I am a winner, warts and all. And so I am so grateful about that. I'm a author, a number one best-selling author. I'm a minister. I'm a life coach. But most of all, I am a child of the King. And I am just so excited about being here. And when someone asks me how I am, as I told the dentist on this morning, I said, I am dark and I am lovely. And I like everything about me. May not be perfect, and I'm still a work in progress, but I love me some me.
I love me some me. I think that that's a perfect segue into our series today, where we're talking about how do we preserve what we have learned in our family through the arts, whether that's through poetry and song, or even if it's just through photo voice. There's something in the the preserving of the I am, right?
Yeah,
I feel
yeah,
like even as you said that, that is such a powerful, meaningful statement, because it really showcases and it puts you in a position of your identity.
yes,
It's who you are. And
yes.
so when we think about the arts, which is really the focus of this mini series, what are some of the things that you have done within your family or within your family history that really have shaped that personal identity of who you are, that I am stance that you just mentioned?
Thank you. Well, I had the privilege that a lot of people don't have, and that is we had at one time 5 generations. I
Ooh.
had my great grandmother, my grandmother, my mother, my sister, and her child. Now, that's a lot of generations.
Woo.
And my great grandmother was just awesome. She was a praying woman.
Mm.
She came into your room at night and she prayed over you until the point where you would want her to leave because she prayed so long. But there was one thing I remembered about that prayer. She would tell us, you can't go too far or stay too long because I have prayers tacked up in heaven. And the things that kept me is what I call through my growing up quips and quotes. They were just little things that I have remembered since I was a child. And I'll share with you uh, one from sort of kind of everybody. My great grandmother, when we would mess up, she would say, keep on doing what you're doing because it's a long road that ain't got no end. And we would say, what? What does that mean? And she said, I will not tell you. She said, but if you keep on living, you're going to find out what I'm talking about. Stay on that road. It's long when it ain't got no end. And
Mm-hmm.
I said, I have never, ever forgotten it. And then my grandmother would say to us, and well, let me go to my great aunt first. My great aunt would say, we would be doing something, and she said, "You gonna do what I say, as God is my secret judge." And we go like, "What? What does God have to do with it?" But at that time, it kind of struck a fear in us. We were from another generation. When she said, "God is my secret judge," then I, in my head, as a kid, I'm going like, "Oh God, God is writing this down, and He's
Mhm,
going to hold it." So I've got to stay in line. And the things that they said propped us up and kept us from going too far and staying too
mhm,
long,
mhm,
because you know and then because they were teaching us how to communicate. and
mhm,
uh, and then when we were like growing up, I know that my grandmother told us this one, and she would say to us, "I'll take your bath, wash good, be sure that you're clean, because when you smell yourself, someone else has smelled you 3 days before." Okay, so we always made sure we were clean, but they were depositing into us things that we did not know.
mm.
And then my mom would say, and I tell you, I'm writing a little book, and I have all these it's called Quips and Quotes. And
Uh-huh.
as I remember them, I write
Mhm,
them down. And we would be talking to my mom, and she would like go, "Okay, you need to do this. You're not paying attention." And we said, "But we hear you." She said, "No." She said, "I know when you're telling the truth." She said, "I will tell you what, from my mouth to your ear is a long way. So you better listen to what I say and do what I say, not what's in your head telling you to do." So that was communication.
mhm,
We
mhm.
had to learn to communicate. But as a child growing up, I never I heard them, but we're dismissive. But they were training us up in a way that made us better and made us stronger. And my great grandmother, we had two sets of families, and this was when we got together for a family reunion. And half of us were the McNeils, and the other half were the Murkisons. Well, I never knew that they were kin to us until my great grandmother called down some of her relatives, and they all came because my great grandmother's father was a slave, I think she told us. And so there was a farm, and slave owner, we were the Murkisons, everybody, and another slave owner came and bought my cousins, and they became the McNeils. So we never knew until she told us this, that we were even kin, because they lived in New Jersey and we lived in North Carolina. But so when we would get together, then we could share the stories and
Mhm.
understand that we were related, and that was just awesome. And this didn't happen till I was about 30.
Wow, wow. So sounds like to me an art form, the art of storytelling, the art of communication, and
Yes,
in so many words, really
yes,
being able to help you recall even in
yes.
the moment. I remember growing up, my grandma used to sing this song. I don't know if you know it. Walk
Mhm.
with me, Lord.
Yes, yes,
Walk with me. And it
yes.
was that part where she said, "While I'm on this
Tedious
tedious
journey.
journey,
Yes.
I want you, Lord." And then
Walk
she
with
this part where she said, "You walk with my mother,
me.
Lord." Walk
Yes,
with me.
yes,
So in that moment, it's one of my
yes,
favorite songs. It's an old
yes.
song, but when I tell you,
Hey,
I can remember
yes,
my grandma singing that. For one, there's gonna be
yes,
journey sometimes. There's going to be hardship
yes,
sometimes. But
yes,
while you're on it, just know that
yes,
God can walk with you. And not only is He walking with you, but there's a legacy of a God walk because He walked
yes,
with your mother,
yes,
He walked
yes.
with your grandmother. And so
Right.
He's going to what? Continue
Yes,
to walk with you.
yes,
So
yes,
I just love the power of preserving what
yes,
was made strong
Yes.
for those that were our elders. And even if they did not have that formal education, there
No,
is nothing like those deposits that you just talked
that's
about.
right. Right.
So that I think that that's a perfect segue into the second question that I have for you. That's connected to how have you preserved some of these, what did you call them, quotes and quirks?
Quips and quotes.
Quips and quotes. How did you preserve these quips and quotes in a way that not only you can recall, but others? And I know you said you're documenting them for a book, so that's another way to preserve it. I think
Yes.
it's a powerful way to preserve it. But is there any other ways in addition to the book that you can highlight as to how you are preserving this as a rich heritage for healing and remembering and just building communication and wisdom?
Well, number one, we share them with each other. Whenever we get together, whenever we're on the phone, we always go, do you remember when Aunt Loree said? And or do you remember my grandmother we called Bay? And I never knew why we called her Bay. Her name we never called, but she said when we were young, she used to say, "Come here, baby," and so we started calling her Bay. So Bay, um, you know, we would remember when Bay said this. Now, remember, my great grandmother did not die until I was in my 30s. And so, and
Wow.
she came to stay with my grandmother on the weekends. And so we had the weekends with her. So now what we do is we remember. We remember when we get together to share with each other. And just we could be talking on the phone and I could say something and someone and my sister misunderstand. And I can say, well, you know what? From my ear to your ear is a long way. What's going on? So not only just at times, but we every day in our conversations, we keep it going to the fact. And the other reason that I was writing it down because other people were asking me because if I'm in a conversation with you, I might say that. And they would say, where do you get that from?
Where does that
I
come
said, oh yeah.
from?
So it really is spread in the family and outside the family. Other people have written them down. Other people have come to me and said, I finally figured out what it's a long road that ain't got no end means. Just keep on
Mm.
living. I would say, well, great. And they would say how it helped. And so we just preserve it through talking and and another thing we had thought about doing is my daughter does film, so we may do like a documentary on these kinds of things, so that I have nieces and great nephews to pass them along too. We're sharing them with them also. We're not going to let these quips and quotes die.
That's so powerful. I love it. The quips and quotes. And you said something so powerful. You highlighted this word of remember. And I recently did a study on gratitude, which in Hebrew means teragat tova, teragat tova, which means remember the good.
Yes.
Tov in Hebrew being good. And so there's a powerful component of healing when you remember good.
Yes.
And the thing that sometimes keeps us from a healed state is
Hmm.
that we can get in a position or disposition of remembering the things that aren't good. And
Right.
so it puts us in a present state of pain and sorrow, even if it happened in the past. And so when we remember or recall from a place of tova, tov, it allows us to stay in what is good and to be in a place of gratitude and remembrance. And that's what it sounds like you are doing
Yes.
in regards to preserving. And
Yes.
you highlighted the generation perspective. And so as we get to this concluding question, it really highlights how your preserving of these words and the art of storytelling,
Yes.
how do you feel like that's going to bridge the gap across generations and be very impactful to future generations?
Well, one thing I always say, if you don't know where you came from, you don't know where you're going. So we have to know why. How did I get strong? where did I come? Because I was raised in a house full of strong women, where I don't care what you did, failure was not an option. My mother didn't take no. You had to live up to the standard. And she would always tell you, not because you can't, but if she said can't is just a warmed up ain't. And so so she would push us. And I remember when I was in college. I had gone up college up in Cullowhee, and I was up there, and I had such a horrible time. And she told me, she said, and some of the things were just if I told her, she wouldn't have believed it. They were so horrible. And she was saying, "That's great, baby." She said, "But we pray. But what happens is you have to stay there a whole year to bring back some credits so you can transfer to another school." She said, "Because we're not going to let those people bring us down. They will not have control over us. Failure is not an option." And she wasn't saying that I was failing, but the situation was failing. And so, how was I going to redeem the situation? And when you have a strong people in your family, all you know is strength. All you know is you can make it because it's been hammered into you since you were a child. You are better than you think you are. You can do anything. And I want to thank them for putting that, instilling that in us. And that's what we instill in our children and our grandchildren, and that there is goodness in you. Not that we don't believe it, but we've all been wounded through situations. But how do we come at? I have not been wounded like my great grandma was in her dad in slavery. I haven't been wounded like that, but I got wounds. So from her telling me how they went through, how they conquered, how they came over, then
Mm-hmm.
I can find that strength that was it. Because if nobody didn't tell me I had it,
Mm-hmm.
I would not have known it.
Mm. And it sounds like not only did they tell you had it, they showed you.
Yes,
So
they did.
even showing of overcoming is an
Yes,
art itself because they are literally drawing a canvas of life that gives you a visual representation of what it
yes,
means to superb.
yes,
Really the
yes.
essence of We Lift Us, super
Right,
but still human.
right,
It doesn't mean that in my humanity that I'm not going to experience challenges, that I may
right,
experience suffering and some pain,
right.
but there's something about being
Yes,
right,
yes,
superb, super
yes,
but still human, and
yes.
that's an art form in itself. So
It
thank
is.
you so very much
Yes,
for all of the quotes, for all of the memories, for all of the different things and lessons that you've learned, and those very meaningful words that someone else can even use. And
yes,
even when they get your book, they'll have a little bit of backstory on how
yes,
and how this has been a powerful intergenerational preservation.
yes.
You know,
Can I can I tell you one more thing that my mother told us?
yeah.
We were very poor, and my
Mm,
granddaddy had a garden, and so we worked in the garden. And my granddaddy would tell us every morning at 5 o'clock. He would say, "Get up, cause it's day." But
mm.
I didn't know that he was teaching me how to get up and be to work on time.
Oh,
So that didn't even cross my mind at that time. But I remember at one point we were so poor and we didn't have anything to eat. And my mother came in and she said, "I can cook when it ain't no food." And she did.
mm.
So it made you believe in the impossible,
Yeah.
that God could do anything with but fail.
Mm,
Okay. So, and when she would come in my room, she would tell me not to wear something, and I would put it on, and she would knock on the door and say, "Take off that brown skirt and put on something else." People of wisdom.
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so
So
much.
thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing that and your willingness to pass on a
Yes.
legacy within your family to others. And I believe that they'll be empowered and inspired. And so I hope that individuals will be able to learn more about Dr. Ingram's work. How can individuals learn more about what you do?
Well, I am on social media. I have a Facebook page. And so I'm a coach, reflective metamorphosis. That's the call. That is that. So I help women with inner healing, and I have I help women build better marriages, and I also have a TikTok, and I'm on LinkedIn.
Awesome.
Yes.
So y'all connect so that you can get more quotes and just be lifted. I hope that you all felt lifted on today. And I hope as you feel lifted individually that we can experience it collectively. Thank you so much.
Thank you.